Welcome to Football Game Plan's Power Rankings. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. We have an action-packed show lined up for you guys today where we're going to have an all NFL edition of the Power Rankings show where we're going to talk about our top 50 quarterbacks heading into the 2020 NFL season. We will also be joined by our Football Game Plan analyst, Chris James, who will give you his top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL, but also talk to you about teams that had the best offseason or who had the worst offseason. But we're going to get this thing kicked off by taking a look at some of the breakout players you want to keep an eye on this upcoming year. At number 5 is Jonah Williams, a second-year offensive tackle for the Cincinnati Bengals. He was drafted last year to help solidify the offensive line, but suffered an injury during training camp that essentially wiped out his rookie campaign. Well, he's back healthy at 100% and is already looking like the Bengals made a great selection in the 2019 NFL Draft with how he's performing so far at training camp. Next is Tampa Bay Bucks corner Jamil Dean. Last year as a rookie, he was impressive, getting better as the season went on. He's got the athleticism and the speed to match up on the back end, picking off 2 passes and breaking up 17 last year despite only starting 5 games. Darrell Henderson was relegated to spot duty as a rookie behind Todd Gurley, but now with Gurley off to the Falcons, it's Henderson's opportunity to showcase the same game-breaking explosiveness that we saw from him back at Memphis. With an emphasis on the run game this year for the Rams, expect Henderson to be the direct beneficiary, taking the proverbial ball and running with it. I feel like wide receiver Paris Campbell is a forgotten man with regards to the optimism that's surrounding the Indianapolis Colts offense this season. He's one of the more versatile and explosive receivers on that roster, and he's fully healthy and gets to work with the future Hall of Famer in Phillip Rivers, who also likes to work the underneath passing game. Campbell has the opportunity to become a premier catch-and-run threat within his offense. And at number 1 is quarterback Dwayne Haskins of Washington. After being thrust into a disadvantageous situation by a lame duck head coach, Haskins showed marked improvement over the course of his starts last season. People underestimate how good of a prospect he was coming out of Ohio State and how young and inexperienced of a prospect he was as well. With a second year of pro quarterbacking under his belt, along with the way he attacked this offseason, look for number 7 to put up impressive numbers this upcoming year. Be sure to order your copy of the Go-Go Offense by Coach Brennan Marion on footballgameplan.com/GoGoOffense. Coach Marion goes through the ins and outs of his explosive offense, one that's tearing up the college football field and putting a lot of points on the scoreboard. Again, you can order your copy at footballgameplan.com/GoGoOffense. Welcome back to Football Game Plan's Power Rankings. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. And before we get into our top 32 quarterbacks of the NFL season heading into 2020, let's take a look at the QBs that just missed the cut. As we take a look at the names on this list, 50 through 41, it's made up primarily of backups and those fighting for backup roles on rosters. Now, over the last 2 to 3 seasons, I've been very impressed with Matt Barkley and how much better he has gotten as a quarterback. He has become the perfect QB2 for the Buffalo Bills, able to step in and play well if need be. Former Super Bowl winner Joe Flacco would be higher on this list had it not been for the uninspired play that we've seen from him over the last 2 seasons. And there are 2 young pups on this list as well, in Justin Herbert out of Oregon and Jordan Love, the rookie from Utah State. Just on potential upside alone puts them ahead of a few players on here. But I'm intrigued by Jordan Ta'amu for the Kansas City Chiefs. He was one of the standout players in the XFL's short season earlier in the spring. Now, his skill set is what Andy Reid covets at the position and will be able to further develop his game as an NFL player. It's just unfortunate we won't get to see the progress that he's made during the preseason because of the pandemic. Moving on to the next 8 players on this list, and we go from one former XFL quarterback to another with the league's MVP, PJ Walker, landing in Carolina with his former college head coach in Matt Rule. Geno Smith, to me, still has some ability to be a starting quarterback somewhere in the NFL, and I think the Seahawks are in a much better shape at QB2 than many would give them credit for. And quietly, Ryan Fitzpatrick proved to be the spark for that Dolphins offense last season, helping them get on the winning track, becoming much more competitive in the process. Just by how he plays out there on the field, you can tell that he's a very good teammate. But I want to focus on 2 of the quarterbacks that were starters last year but will enter this season as backups, and that's Jacoby Brissett and Jameis Winston. Now, Brissett wasn't playing bad football last year. In fact, he he had the Colts sitting with a 5-2 record heading into that Steelers game before getting injured inside the red zone and missing the rest of that contest, as well as the following game. He and the Colts never really recovered, but when you look at his raw stats, 18 touchdown passes to only 6 interceptions, 60% completion percentage, I felt like the Colts panicked a bit this offseason and went after Phillip Rivers. Now, it's only a 1-year deal, and the team has publicly said that they still have future plans with Brissett at the quarterback spot, but he'll have to stay ready if Rivers can't overcome that turnover bug we saw from him last season, which is why he's not playing in Southern California this upcoming season. And we know about the interceptions that Jameis Winston threw last year with the Bucs, but we can't ignore the fact that he led the league in passing yards while also throwing 33 touchdown passes. Winston had LASIK surgery this offseason to correct a sight issue which dealt with depth perception, and from early reports in Saints training camp, he's looking like the former Heisman Trophy winner and national champion that he was at Florida State. He lands in an ideal situation in New Orleans where Drew Brees is on borrowed time, and number 2 may be number 1 soon enough in the Big Easy. Moving on to the top 32, and I feel like it's only right to put 2 potential starting rookies at number 31 and 32. That's Joe Burrow and Tua Tagovailoa respectively, as they haven't played it down yet, although I expect both to play really well, with Burrow surprising some with how competitive the Cincinnati Bengals will be this upcoming year. Tyrod Taylor gets his opportunity to lead the Los Angeles Chargers this season as their starter, hoping to keep rookie first-round pick Justin Herbert on the bench. A trio of 2019 rookies in Daniel Jones for the Giants, Gardner Minshew for the Jaguars, and Dwayne Haskins for Washington are all looking to build on the flashes that they showed as rookies. But there is another sophomore passer in Drew Lock that I'm excited about. When you look at what he did last season when he became the starter, the offense just looked to have much more juice out there on the field. He went 4-1 in his 5 starts, and the one game that he played terrible was the game that they lost to Kansas City. You add the fact that he's flush with weapons at wide receiver, running back, and tight end, it's hard not to be excited about his potential in 2020. Sam Darnold's in a pivotal year. He missed time each of his first 2 seasons as a starter with the New York Jets, but when he's out there, he's proved to be capable of being a winner. We saw that last season when he returned from mono, and it left you wondering, man, if he'd been out there the whole season, maybe they could have pushed for the playoffs. That's why this year is going to be a big one for the former USC Trojan. Baker Mayfield can play, but can he protect the football is the biggest question. In his 2 seasons as a starter, he has thrown 35 interceptions and has fumbled the football 13 times. If he's able to minimize those mistakes, he has more than enough talent around him to get the Browns to the playoffs. With a rededication to his craft and a quiet offseason, I expect Baker to bounce back in 2020. Football Game Plan is brought to you in part by 9th & Lux. Visit the website 9thandlux.com and check out the clothing gallery. Nesby Phipps, art, life, entertainment. NesbyPhipps.com. Grind It Out Fitness. Visit the website grinditoutfitness.com and download the app. Financial Coaching LLC. Investment, retirement, security. Stewardship Credit. Financial growth is in your hands. Stewardshipcredit.com. Adrienne Marie Photo. Photographer, writer, management. AdrienneMariePhotography.com. Lock Multimedia. And welcome back to Football Game Plan's Power Rankings. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook, joined now by Chris James, Football Game Plan analyst. Chris, thank you for taking time. I know you're out there on the road doing your thing. I just want to ask you, when you look at teams that have had the off seasons, and we are in a unique era now with the COVID-19, we missed out on mini camps and OTAs, but there are some teams that I know you have earmarked for that, that have had some pretty good off seasons. So let's go with your top 5, starting with number 5.
So, team with the best offseason. So there's a thing called perception, and it dictates reality. So the perception is the added pieces made this team much better, and now they're a Super Bowl contender. And that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bringing in a guy like Tom Brady, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's pretty much going to get his gold jacket even while he's playing at this stage. Bringing a guy like him, bringing in Gronk, these names are helpful. But what really drove the team was having an excellent draft. Going after Tristan Wirfs early, getting a guy like Antoine Winfield, who is a movable piece, a la a guy like a Jamal Adams, a guy we can put all over the field. Those are the real additions that give them an opportunity to be an upper echelon team this year.
Yeah, you talk about Tampa Bay. I was about to say Tampa Bay, but you talk about Tampa Bay and what they've done. You also bring back Ndamukong Suh. You also get, healthy Vita Vea, and the secondary has gotten better. So that would be your number one team. So who would you say is number two?
I'm going to actually stick in the division. And this sounds really interesting to say that, you have two teams in the same division, but it was the New Orleans Saints. Sometimes less is more. They only had 3 picks in their draft, but they knocked it out the park with all draft picks that they had this year, addressed positions that they needed, and also bringing in a guy like Emmanuel Sanders. They finally have a viable number 2 option so that Michael Thomas does not have to do all the work at the receiver position. With all due respect to the guys they have on the team. Talented guys, but they're not the ilk of a guy like Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah, and I really like that addition. You talked about the draft and Adam Trautman out of Dayton. I think he's the quintessential Saints tight end and what they look for at that position. Who you have at number 3?
And number 3 is going to be one that kind of may confuse some people in some respects, but I'm actually going to go with the Arizona Cardinals. Listen, when you go from being a team that had the number 1 pick, right, to a team that looked competitive, to a team that honestly has a chance to win a division, and they have the Super Bowl participant in their division, making a trade with, they fell out of sorts with David Johnson, don't know what happened there, but bringing in DeAndre Hopkins, that gives your number 1 overall pick quarterback, a franchise quarterback, Kyler Murray, the opportunity to really be as successful as possible. And he already hit the ground running in year 1, so year 2 should be an excellent one for him.
Yeah, that Cardinals team looks impressive on paper. They're young, they're athletic, they're versatile. And when you watched them play last year, you saw a team that definitely had the goods to be successful, even from the first game when he came back and tied that game against the Detroit Lions. So who's at number 4?
At number 4, I'm going to go with the Las Vegas Raiders. Yes, and it feels weird to say it, but the Las Vegas Raiders. Look, what they've been doing is stacking talent. They might have had a miss here or there, and some of that may be because of injury, stuff like that, but their mid-round picks over the last couple of years have worked out well. They've continued to infuse more and more talent on that offensive side of the ball. Bringing a guy like Henry Ruggs, who is possibly the fastest person next to Tyreek Hill in the league. Bringing in a guy, Lynn Bowden, who no one's going to talk about, but he's going to be that piece that he can do so many different things that you won't even pay attention to him, and all of a sudden he sneaks up on you because he has a punt return for a touchdown. So the things they've done on offense, and they've tried to also build the defense as well. I like what the Raiders have done to really make themselves a team.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Corey Littleton, the linebackers that they've added. I love the talent that they have in the secondary, getting Damon Arnett and also Amik Robertson out of Louisiana Tech. We know him very well from what he was able to do down there with the Bulldogs. When you look at rounding out your top 5 off season so far, who had one of the best ones?
And you know what? I'm going to stick in their division as well. I really like what the Denver Broncos did. Listen, they finally have a quarterback that looks like he could be the guy that John Elway's been trying to get into that facility in Drew Lock. So what do? Do we restrict what he has? No. They threw all the pieces at him. They got him 3 receivers in the draft. Getting a guy like KJ Hamler, who's he's still developing his game, but he has so much talent where I know that he can eventually be an excellent one. And then Jerry Jeudy, who, if he's not the number 1 receiver in the draft, he's my number 2, but if he's not the number 1 receiver in the draft, he's definitely the number 1 route runner in the draft. This guy is an excellent route runner. Bringing in a second tight end to go behind Noah Fant. So they did so many things to try to improve that offense and really be high-flying again.
They're going to be exciting to watch, man. The only thing they got to do now is just keep those alternate helmets with a throwback D on that dark blue helmet. They do that, they're going to go straight to the Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
You look at the teams that now have had some bad off seasons, and technically you could say everyone is going through a little bit of transition because of what we're now dealing with the pandemic, and again, all of those lack of opportunities to build that cohesiveness. So starting with the number 1 team you think that had the worst off season, who would that be?
A couple of years ago, this team was cusping towards a Super Bowl, and it's funny, they mirror another team that's kind of had a interesting fall from grace, but it's the Chicago Bears. I didn't like the additions they had this year. Granted, they traded for what they're calling an upgraded quarterback, and I do like Nick Foles, but they didn't do enough to address that position, in my opinion. Going in the second round and getting a guy like Cole Kmet, nothing wrong with Cole Kmet, talented player, but they also signed Jimmy Graham. They already had Adam Shaheen. They have, I believe, and I'm not making a joke here, 10 tight ends on the roster. So what's going to happen at that position? And they missed out on players to be candid, they could have gotten Grant Delpit instead of Cole Kmet and help out at safety. They could have gotten Jalen Hurts instead of a really talented corner in Johnson out of Utah, but they really didn't address the positions that needed to be addressed.
That's true. They could have also gotten Cam Newton or Teddy Bridgewater before even breaking the bank to go get Nick Foles, who may not even be better than Mr. Trubisky. Who's at number 2?
And number 2, this is not a team that you're used to hearing about, but at number 2, it's going to be the New England Patriots. And some of this is actually not due to anything in their own control. New England had the most players, to my knowledge, of significance that decided to opt out from COVID-19. I mean, having your defensive captain opt out, having another guy who's been on the defense for so long opt out, those were real impacts to that team. And they didn't seem to also get as dynamic as they should have been on the exterior of the offense. The only positive was bringing in Cam Newton, but that's still up in the air because it's never been a lack of talent or ability with Cam. Is his body fully healthy, which is the question. Other than that, if his body's fully healthy, Cam Newton could carry this team more than people want to give him credit for being, that guy.
Yeah, I'm more worried about their special teams too, because you lose Nate Ebner, you also lose your kicker, and now you're trying to have a rookie go out there in those elements and be successful. So I worry about their third aspect as well. Who's number 3?
Same division. I'm going to go with the New York Jets. Listen, I think that they've done some good things. You know, Sam Darnold's trying to cusp and be a good player since he's gotten healthy, but, you know, let's go ahead and be honest. Yeah, they got back 2 first-round picks, but they got back the mystery box for something that they already knew. Basically, you had an all-pro safety who is one of the best players on that side of the ball in the entire league. You ship him out, and his biggest complaint was he knew you weren't trying to win to the extent that you could. You just didn't ever put it together. So losing CJ Mosley not being a participant this year, so many things that have happened that have negatively impacted this team where if they played to their potential, it's still not going to be as much because they just don't have the level of talent that they should.
Yeah, losing CJ Mosley and Jamal Adams in the same offseason, it really makes it tough for a defense that was looking to be the cornerstone of this team in 2020. So when you look at number 4, who's taking that place right now as being one of the teams that didn't have such a good offseason?
And I mentioned this team a little earlier, kind of tongue-in-cheek, but Jacksonville Jaguars. I like what Gardner Minshew did last year. I think that he infused a little excitement into that community. People jumped on it, the mustaches, the jorts, all the whole thing. But to be candid, right now at this position, he's not as talented as some of the other quarterbacks that were available to him in this draft that they could have gotten. I mean, again, I'll mention a guy like Jalen Hurts. This might not be the same opinion as the public, but my opinion is that he can be an excellent NFL quarterback. So they just didn't do anything that jumped off the page. I know that they also lost a lot on their defense. They have defensive talented players like Yannick Ngakoue, who's trying to get out of there. They're not addressing things in the right manner. So I don't think that they had the greatest offseason.
Man, you know, it's that old thing, you know, perseverance, consistency, hard work, you know what I mean? My goal is to put the same work into, you know, my businesses, my family that I put into football, you know, and I've been running with that mantra since I got married back in 97, you know, that if I'm going to have a successful marriage, I got to, you know, the same hard work and same consistency and discipline I had on the football field, I got to put in my marriage and with my kids and with my businesses and all that. So it teaches you a lot, man, you know, how to deal with your fellow man and not look at his color, but look at, you know, what he can do for the overall good of what you're trying to accomplish, you know. So, you know, sports to me in general is just an incredible deal when you talk about football specifically because of the closeness of guys. I just believe it's an amazing sport.
We are trucking right along with our QB rankings, looking at players 22 through 13. Ryan Tannehill was able to parlay an effective 7 games of the season into a new contract with the Tennessee Titans. And the question then becomes whether or not those stretch of games were an aberration or a sign of more things to come. And Derek Carr said put some respect on his name, and I like that attitude. He's coming off his best season since 2016 and has a bevy of weapons around him. Jimmy Garoppolo was able to stay healthy for a full 16-game season and was able to help lead his team to the Super Bowl. What can he do for an encore will be what to watch for in 2020. Josh Allen was able to lead his team to the postseason last year, and he's a different type of quarterback, one who has an unconventional style. But what he has going for him is that his teammates believe that he can get them where they want to go. And this is a very underrated part of his game, in my opinion. Once he gets inside the 20, they tend to come up with touchdowns. So despite all of his flaws, he's able to lock in and be both effective and efficient when and where it counts the most. Matthew Stafford was playing the best ball of his career last season before going down with an injury, and you hope that the back issue isn't going to be a lingering one, as we saw what it did to Tony Romo's career late in his tenure as the Cowboys QB. Now, the Lions have low-key built some solid offensive weapons around him heading into this season, one that should feature a potent run game with rookie DeAndre Swift in the backfield. If Stafford is able to pick up where he left off last year, the Lions could find themselves in the postseason. One of the more underrated moves this offseason was when the Carolina Panthers landed our number 12 quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater. The questions surrounding Bridgewater were always about the health of his knee, and he proved that to be just fine in his preseason stint with the Jets, 2 years ago with the Saints in limited duty, and this past season in New Orleans going 5-0 in the starts when Drew Brees was out with an injury. Bridgewater has worked with new offensive coordinator Joe Brady before and is stylistically similar to what Brady just worked with at LSU and the reigning Heisman Trophy winner Joe Burrow. This offense has some weapons in Carolina, and we know Bridgewater is one of the best point guards at the position, and he'll have the Panthers playing in contention each and every week. Here is a look at the rest of 12 through 6, and I don't know why Aaron Rodgers gets so much flack when he is still one of the elite passers in football. When you look at the NFC South and how competitive it's going to be, Tom Brady going to Tampa Bay makes them a contender this year, and the South will have Brady, Matt Ryan, as well as Drew Brees, 3 quarterbacks in our top 10. No other division can boast that. I was impressed with what I saw from Carson Wentz last year. I thought last season was his best season as a pro. When you look at what he did down the stretch, the Eagles played in so many must-win games, and Wentz, despite what was going on around him as far as the offensive line, the receiving core, the backfield with their injuries, Wentz was able to play his best and carry that team into the playoffs. So I thought last year reminded me a lot of what I saw from John Elway in those 1980s Broncos, where he was constantly helping that team get to the Super Bowl. I thought the Eagles had a shot to really do that last year. It seemed like they were on a magical run. So I think Carson Wentz has turned the corner, and what he did last year was impressive, and I'm excited to see what he has in store for 2020. And Cam Newton is still Cam Newton. To me, when he's out there healthy at 100%, he's one of the best quarterbacks in football. Right now, he's at number 10. But when you look at what he's doing out there in training camp with New England, getting acclimated to the offense, he's with Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniel, and a healthy, motivated Cam Newton, who's one of the more motivated athletes out there on the field anyway, I think is going to be a beautiful thing to watch out there in Foxborough. Now we move into the top 5, and I think these are the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, the reigning MVP Lamar Jackson, the reigning MVP and Pat Mahomes, and Russell Wilson. When you look at Russell Wilson, his numbers don't even make sense on how efficient, effective, and dynamic he has been as a quarterback. He's a true dual threat. He has led this team to a Super Bowl, multiple Super Bowls, has won one, but has also put together winning seasons every year. He has been the starting quarterback for the Seahawks. So to me, what he did last year, if it wasn't for Lamar Jackson doing Lamar Jackson things, Russell Wilson would have been the MVP. I think he'll win one this year, but what he's going to put out there on the field this upcoming season. So that's it for Football Game Plan's Power Rankings. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Be sure to follow me on all of my social media accounts. And don't forget to check out and subscribe to the Football Game Plan Network located at youtube.com/Football Game Plan. Also subscribe on iTunes to Football Game Plan Podcast and leave us a 5-star rating.